Now I invite His Excellency Lorenzo Angeloni, Honorable Ambassador of Italy, to share his views.
So thank you very much, ladies. Today, ladies first. But
Okay.
in Italy, usually ladies are first, but today especially. Colleagues and gentlemen. So thank you for inviting me here in this interaction with you. I'm truly delighted to participate in a forum that has women as protagonists. And I have to say that not only FICCI Ladies Organization show the way for women business power, but FICCI as a whole gives the good example by choosing for the second consecutive year, Dr. Jyotsna Suri as president. So congratulations to the whole organization for that. Even though I'm here between with our European male ambassadors, I strongly believe, and so the majority of Italians, that women are the makers of a better future,
Absolutely.
both at workplace as well as home. So we, in Italy, we refer to women, especially and mainly, as homemakers. And of course, yes, they are, but they are also called peacemakers, because it's more and more recognized the attitude of women to be decisive in sort of peace process, no, inside the family, and I would say more and more inside the society. But I think that it's time to recognize also that women are wealth makers, and all of you entrepreneurs here are a living proof of that. It's not, I think, a coincidence that in many Indian families propitiate a deity for prosperity, that they invoke the female goddess Lakshmi, if I'm not wrong. So I think this tells something, no, to all of us. And maybe it is also time to change a very old saying that says, behind every successful man there is a woman.
Yeah.
I think that
Fully
we all know that. Into another one that says, beside every man there is a successful woman. I think that we should try to update a little bit this. So now coming to Italy and its practice for economic empowerment of women. It's not easy in a few minutes to concentrate and to focus on a development that is ongoing from decades in our country.
You please take your time.
Yes,
no problem.
Yeah, thank you very much. At the same time, I have the feeling that coming from a Southern Europe country, I have the hardest task here to convince yourself, to convince you.
I think your mic
It's on. No, it's on. Yes, to convince that we are not a male-dominated society anymore, and especially after the intervention of my colleague from Austria and Iceland. But you will decide on your own after my few words. Let me start from the top. And let me start by politics. And in 2014, at the very inception of the new government in Italy, you know that, well, I don't know if you know, but we have a new government in Italy. We often have a new government in Italy, but this government is the latest and started more or less at the same time of your new government here in India. And our prime minister is a young man, 40 years old, called Matteo Renzi, he chose to appoint of the 16 members of his cabinet, he chose to appoint 8 men and 8 women. And this was in Italy the first time that something happened, absolutely a breaking news for our society. Women in our government had portfolios like economic development, defense, national education, reform of public sector, and institutional reform. So, I mean, it's very relevant and important sectors. The Prime Minister's office hosts since a long time a department for gender parity, which coordinates all regulatory and administrative initiatives for the promotion of gender equality in the spheres of life. In our parliament, women account for 31.4% of the total, and this figure is ahead of the EU average of 26.9%. And let me just recall, to give you a wider side of that, that women MPs in US represent 18.3%, in Israel 22.5%, and in Japan 8.1%. So the situation in Europe is not that bad. The new Italian electoral law, adopted by the parliament in May 2015, provides for compulsory alternation of one man and one woman in the list of preferences. So voters can choose two preferences only if they are one man and one woman. So forgive me to indulge on this political aspects, but as we just heard from our friend, the Ambassador of Iceland, high-level political participation is considered, it's a main entrance for the also economic empowerment of women. But coming now more strictly in the sphere of business, Italy ranks second in Europe when it comes to women entrepreneurs. Wow. The OECD, there are figures that you can find in OECD report on entrepreneurship, shows that in our country, 16% of women are either autonomous professionals or entrepreneurs, a figure that exceeds other big European countries, despite the fact that they have, especially Northern European countries, they have more advanced policies on women employment. This report, the same report, also tells us that 26.8% of Italian companies with a single owner are headed by women. And in terms of how long a company survives, on average, for women, the report says that the 3 years after inception, this is a very interesting figures, because a lot of small and medium enterprises, especially small and medium, they cannot survive after 1 or 2 years' time. So, but this report says that after 3 years after inception, the survival rate is 37.6% for women-headed enterprises and 37.8% for those run by men. So apparently, we can say that the survival rate is equal. But these figures tell us that and gives women a certificate of resilience, considering the odds they still face in their roles as homemakers and business leaders. So this is something very, very interesting. In Italy, the Confederation of European Business is chaired by a prominent Italian businesswoman that was before chairman of our national business organization. A large number of women are also members of board of directors, as we expect this trend will be confirmed by the so-called female quota bill, providing that by this year, 2015, the boards of directors of listed companies and state-owned companies must be composed of 1/3 women. And the presence of women at work place in Italy has increased not only in terms of percentage, but it extended to professions that were traditionally male in all the sectors and at all levels. So my generation, we have seen women in police and in armed force for the first time. We have seen them maneuver with expertise construction machinery, huge construction machinery, was not even thinkable before. They practice and excel in sports that were earlier alien to the female world, for instance, football. I was, in my youth, a semi-professional football player, and I have to tell you that I was really very surprised when I decided to stop with football at the age of 49. On the other team, there were a couple of women that were tackling my ball in my action. So it was really very, very funny for me, but sign of development of this. And of course, we have, maybe you may have read of the Italian astronaut who lived for almost a year in the orbit, Captain Samantha Cristoforetti. So a number of new professions open to women. But without pushing ourselves to the space and talking of the profession, I mean, So till 1967, in Italy, diplomatic career precluded women. It was not possible for women to enter diplomatic career till the 1967. In my batch, I entered in 1985. There were only 2 women out of a total of 25 new diplomats, and now almost or more than 1/3 of the new diplomats are women. So we see here a clear increasing tendency. I think that we have to acknowledge that such important results in the economic institutional areas have been achieved through great efforts and hard work. So women are in Italy and in your country are the foundation of families and of communities. Children and family care represent a relevant part of women's daily routine, and despite the responsibility towards their families, women are reaching top position in their professional life. So in Italy, we experience a shared struggle of the society as a whole in order to change attitude towards an historically unbalanced burden sharing. And I have to say, belonging, as I said before, to a generation that was participating to this huge change of a society, that I have to say that for men it has not been, and is still not easy, to reposition themselves in the society after the social changes that have taken place in the last few decades. But it's certainly very, very positive for us to be able to compare, for instance, our thoughts with the feminine points of views, and to approach to the feminine points of view and approach for solving problems. So I personally had a lot of great experience starting working with colleagues, female, that was, as I said before, not happening, and looking at things, and especially at things that need sort of more peaceful, wider peaceful, intelligent peaceful attitude to compare notes with females. Well, I have to say that I accepted to come here today with great pleasure out of all the requests that we receive every day, because I'm convinced that the economic empowerment of women force is crucial, is really crucial for harmonious development of society. And with this, I would like to conclude by paying a tribute to all the women, Indian and otherwise, much before, I have to say, much before the modern concept like empowerment came into being. It has been you who have managed to do extraordinary things with extraordinary dedication for the society we live in. So thank you very much for inviting me. I shall be very interested in discussing with you, and I'm at your disposal for any proposal or suggestion you may have in this regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll be now opening the floor to questions. But I'd like to first ask for your responses on 2 things. One is that regarding maternity leave, is it the company that pays the maternity leave, or is it the government also? Because, for example, if you have a 2-year maternity leave and the company has to pay for that 2 years, then would it not bias the company's employment decisions, because that's an extra expense that they see? So is it that the government shares in it? Because I know, for example, the French government pays a substantial part of the maternity leave. And the second is the issue of childcare, which is basically, I think, the major barrier for women's participation in the economic field. I'll just give you an example. My sister is from the